And I don't think there's a milestone associated with loneliness, right? Like with my son, I was like, oh, he took the subway for the first time, or,
Sure.
he had a play date with a friend, or that's all cool, but you don't think about the feelings. They're not tangible. They're not action oriented. You can't do behavior therapy for it.
What up, my friends? Welcome back to the Vibe with Kai podcast. I'm Kai. And listen, I'm really, really glad that you are here with me today. If this is your first time here, this is the podcast where we have honest, funny conversations about ADHD, mental health, and the chaos of being human with zero toxic positivity. Today's episode is about an app called Synchrony. It's a social app built specifically for neurodivergent adults, somewhere to actually make friends. And it's built from the ground up for us neurodivergent people instead of being bolted onto something that already existed. The three people behind it are Jamie Pastrano, who is a licensed social worker and a mom, and Brittany Mosier, a former teacher with a master's in autism studies, and Rebecca Matchett, who everybody calls Becky, and who spent 2 decades in fashion and actually holds a patent for women's sizing. I've come to really enjoy the presence of all three of these people. I've gotten the chance to meet them in person. They're amazing. And I'll tell you, their backgrounds are not the backgrounds that you would expect behind a social app. And that is exactly the point, I believe. So here's what we get into in this episode. We start with why an app like this even needs to exist in the first place. For a lot of us, the structured support we grow up with, it stops, honestly, after high school, and nobody hands you a replacement. Your social life quietly becomes your own problem to solve. And Jamie's point is that loneliness never gets treated like a real milestone because you can't measure it in a way that you could measure a first job, for instance. From there, in this episode, we get into the part that I really enjoy talking about. We get into how on Synchrony, you have to prove who you are. You have to prove you are who you say you are, right? So you have to upload an ID. You have to have somebody that knows you actually vouch for you before you can join. And my first thought was like, okay, well, that would probably be something that was built to scare people off. And their answer to that is that wide open platforms are exactly what failed the neurodivergent community in the first place. And these extra steps that you have to take to join this platform, that's what helps let people, especially neurodivergent people, unmask a little bit more once they're in. And then from there, we actually get into the questions surrounding AI because there is an optional coach that's built into the app called Jessie. Now, I know a lot of my audience, when you hear the word AI, you check out right in that very second, understandably so. So I asked them straight up whether, having this AI, feature, whether that is quietly teaching neurodivergent people to sound more neurotypical. And I love their answer, and their answer is worth sitting through. I'll be honest with you. This episode, it landed somewhere I wasn't expecting. I'm late diagnosed, and I masked for most of my life without knowing that's what I was even doing in the first place. I never had a room where I got to just stop. I'm good now. I just wish I had that back then, and they created this. What I hope you take from this episode today is safety. Not the kind of safety where nothing goes wrong, but safety as in a room where you don't have to perform in order to be welcome. Also, friends, if you enjoyed this episode today, please be sure to visit my website at thevibewithkai.com. There you will find my ADHD blog, my newsletter, my digital download store, and every single episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast, all in one place. It is your one-stop shop for adults managing ADHD and their mental health. With that said, my friends, enough talking from me. Let's get into today's episode. Sit back, relax, and enjoy my chat with the brilliant brains behind Synchrony, Jamie Pastrano, Brittany Mosier, and Rebecca Matchett. I am here with 3 friends of mine who I am so happy that we get to sit and chat about this because Synchrony was introduced to me. Was it last year?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
pre-launch.
Where does the time go? I don't know where the time goes, but it was introduced to me last year, and I was like, this is cool. This is great for the neurodivergent community. So we're going to be talking all about that today. And Brittany and Jamie, I got to meet both of you in person at Neurodivergent in March of this year, which was a lot of fun. Rebecca, you just didn't like me, so you didn't want to come. Is that why?
That's not it at all. Someone had to, stay down and hold down the fort.
That's fine. That's fine. No, I get it. But no, it was great hanging out with everybody in Neurodivergent. It was such a great experience. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So there's a couple couple things that I want to touch base on because we have a lot to talk about. There's a number of things that keep coming up in the research around neurodivergent adults and social situations. And that the number that stands out to me when I do research on this is 5.4 million. And that is the estimated number of autistic adults that are living in the United States right now, according to the Autism Society of America. And the research consistently shows that a significant portion of that population reports feeling chronically isolated, particularly after aging out of like the structured support systems that we grew up with, like schools and early intervention programs and all that kind of stuff. That cliff edge after high school especially is very real. So before we get into everything that you built for Synchrony, I want to kind of set the stage first here. And this is to anybody that wants to answer this. In your view, why has the conversation around loneliness in neurodivergent adults been so quiet for so long? Why do you think that is?
I could take the first stab at it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll take it from, of course, the lens of being a mom because, Kai, my son Jesse is 21 and he's autistic. And I think there's so many things that you need when you're a parent or when you're neurodivergent and you think of the basics. You want your therapies. You want to learn how to talk. You want to learn how to be independent. You want to learn all the social cues. And I don't want to say that mental health gets ignored, but I think it falls to the wayside because you're in this rat race to try to just keep up and stay afloat and have milestones. And I don't think there's a milestone associated with loneliness, right? Like with my son, I was like, oh, he took the subway for the first time, or,
Sure.
he had a play date with a friend, or that's all cool, but you don't think about the feelings. They're not tangible. They're not action oriented. You can't do behavior therapy for it. You can't do ABA for loneliness. So I think it's just a thing that you forget because you're overlooking some of those softer skills, some of the gray areas that aren't measurable. But that's really a shame because really all the other things we mentioned, making plans and all of that, those are just things. The most important thing to measure is really someone's happiness. And you really, I think, have a hard time being happy if you're lonely.
Yeah. And I love this conversation. And I think that's probably what stuck out to me the most when I got to, like, obviously I met you virtually, but I got to meet with you and talk with you in person. I got to spend real time with you. And what stuck out to me immediately in the conversations that we had, it didn't feel like you were pitching a product. Right. I felt like you were telling a story. And I remember thinking that there's something different happening here. Right. Which I really, really appreciate. And Brittany, for the audience who was not in the room with us when that happened, how do you describe what Synchrony is to someone who is hearing about it for the first time? Not the press release version, just like what you would tell a friend.
Well, that's easy. I'm glad you hit me with a low ball. That's great.
Yeah. Keep this easy for everybody. The math questions come later,
I mean,
We'll
first
give
of
this to
all,
Becky.
yes, that goes to Becky. She's the brains of the operation. Well, I'm glad that came across because we say this all the time when we're just having conversations and, meeting about the status of Synchrony is that we're just three people. We're just three people who genuinely care about the community. I'm a former teacher. Jamie's a mom. Becky's involved within the community and is like doing so much to support. And so we're not a big tech company. So I'm glad that is coming through because that would be really strange if we were coming across as a big tech company.
Mm-hmm.
But to describe Synchrony, just the general casual way that I describe it to my neighbors is that we are a social app for neurodivergent adults to form friendships, romantic relationships, dip your toe in the water, whatever that may be. But it's not just to connect, it's to support that connection so that there can be genuine relationships that come out of it. We know that we can't just get people to get together to connect. If it were that easy, it would happen already and there wouldn't be a problem to solve. So that's the key piece there.
Yeah. And I feel like even though it is a social app, I feel like it's a little bit more than that. And if you don't mind, because there's so many different options out there when it comes to apps and things that kind of connect us all together. What makes Synchrony different than some of these other apps that are out there that might offer something similar?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do think that we're trying to build community, right? In a sense of belonging. So it really is a lot more than just the one-to-one connection.
Yeah.
And so that type of sense of belonging is really at the core of what we're doing. Come as you are, try to leave all of the sort of bad experiences in the past, and you're welcome into the community as something bigger than just one person.
Yeah. Becky, I want to stick with you for a second here because your background is genuinely fascinating to me in the context of what Synchrony is trying to do, because you spent more than 2 decades in the fashion world, including co-founding Alice and Olivia, and you hold a patent in women's sizing, which I think is fascinating. That is a very specific kind of problem-solving brain that you have that I really appreciate. So, like when you were told what this plan was, what made you say, hell yeah, let's go, let's do this?
Yeah, I mean, and you completely
story,
picked up on it, because it is that hole in the marketplace, that gap that exists. And that was, my past was in fashion, but those sort of gaps are what intrigued me, right? Why hasn't this been served before? Why does this gap exist? And, and to be presented with Synchrony, or the concept behind Synchrony, and understanding that this is a huge gap that exists in such an important part of people's lives, this social emotional side. I mean, that was really it to me. Like, let's solve this problem. It's more than just not having a shirt to wear that fits you, to your point about the patent, or like a cool pair of pants to wear. This is really, filling obviously a much bigger problem.
Yeah.
Well,
Was there?
Kai,
Sorry, go ahead.
to
Yeah,
give
please.
you some personal context, because I think you'll appreciate it.
Yeah.
I reached out to Becky after Britt and I were talking and really had this idea. And I reached out to Becky because I was really tremendously in awe of her prior entrepreneurial experience. And I wanted to just kind of share with her my idea. And I told her very loosely, like over lunch, like napkin kind of loose talk about this idea I had about my son. We knew each other because our daughters went to the same school. And I saw her eyes like really get big, and she was like locked in. And I think 2 lunches later, I jokingly was like, hey, you want to be our COO? And we didn't even have a company name. So I'll let you ask her more questions. But there's a personal connection within all of us with each other, which I think is why we come across is that we're not a big company and that we're authentic.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I mean,
no,
you all get like, I can tell just by talking with the three of you just how genuinely connected y'all are, not just to each other, but to the story. And like Brittany, you have a master's degree in autism studies, and you've spent years working in New York City schools and corporate consulting environments, helping people and organizations understand neurodiversity. So when Jamie first started talking to you about the idea of what would eventually become Synchrony, you two connected almost immediately. I remember you guys telling me that when we met in Austin. What was the gap that you both identified that you felt was going completely unaddressed?
Well, the idea first started off as a dating app. We wanted, the idea originated as strictly as a dating app. We were watching Love on the Spectrum at the time, and we both loved the show, thought it was just beautiful and really well presented and representing a community that hasn't had a lot of airtime, particularly when we consider romantic relationships, which in the disability community gets even less airtime. And so we were just kind of like kikiing, like talking about, wouldn't it be so great? Oh, we've got this idea. Wouldn't this be so great if we could build in supports and yada, yada, yada. And then as we talked about it more, it became more serious. We realized that you can't get to a romantic relationship before having a friendship. That's the natural progression.
Is that what I've been doing wrong my whole life?
Yes, I'm here to solve your romantic issues for you.
Oh, that's what I've been doing wrong.
It's out of order. You got to have friends first.
39 with 2 cats. That's what I've done. I got it.
Yeah.
All right.
Or maybe
It all
it's
makes sense now.
I don't know.
It all makes sense now. So I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine. That's basically it. Yeah, we just kind of
we
backtracked a little. We said, we were just like, we're skipping a step here. We need to solve a loneliness issue first. We need to solve some, build confidence, capacity, and just all around positive interactions within the neurodivergent community to authentically themselves, not trying to fix anybody, to be able to form all different kinds of friendships. That could end up becoming a confidence within someone's self that they go and get a job. There's so many different ways and directions and different types of relationships out there. But anyway, long story short, it started off with the idea of a dating app. And then we realized that let's start with the basics.
Yeah. And to go back even further before you got brought into the picture, all of this started with the mom watching her son and asking a question that she could not stop asking. So, Jamie, you wrote in the origin story of Synchrony on the website, and I read this more than once, and I appreciate it. You described watching your son, Jesse, as a teenager and realizing that for the first time in your career as a licensed social worker and a peer certified provider, you're just someone who has spent decades connecting families to resources. You could not find a one-to-one solution to his social isolation, and you called it terrifying. And that word hit me. For someone,
Sorry, I'm dramatic.
No. I think it's important. No, I think it's really important for people to understand why this is important. Yeah, and for someone with your level of professional experience and credentials, what does it feel like to hit a wall like that?
It's great to have all the credentials, but honestly, the feeling of being a mom and not having the solution, I think, is more terrifying than the provider piece of it. I wouldn't say that it was a wall because I'm not that kind of a person. There's always a solution if you're willing to keep trying and keep looking. I would say that I've used this phrase before, it was an itch I couldn't stop scratching. I couldn't. It was always there. Like I carried it around with me all the time. And it was a worry that I couldn't really solve for. And I sat with it for a couple of years until it started to become more clear to me about what I thought was really missing. And at that point, it wasn't even about what was missing for Jesse. Because I've said this before, my son, we live in Manhattan. He's got a really super social life. He's like the mayor in our building. I started to think about the bigger picture. What if we didn't live in Manhattan? And what if, one of his friends was very, very depressed and hospitalized a couple of times because he couldn't, quote unquote, find his people. And at that point, it just started to become obvious that there was a bigger issue going on. There's all these young adults and teens that are on their phones and connecting that way. And we're asking neurodivergent people with autism to try to figure out how to use mainstream social apps, which razzle my brains. They make me crazy. Sure. And so the answer started to form then, and it was evident that it was much bigger than Jesse and really kind of shocking. I think Becky's reaction, like, great, there's really nothing out there. Like, there's really not a social app for autistic adults that offers supports that's really just for them. It's hard to believe, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I know that as we sit here describing, this origin and what this app brings, I know that there's people that are listening right now that are like, okay, where do I sign up? And like, what can I do to learn more? And if you don't mind, Becky, can you just walk us through what someone should expect when they first download the app? Like when they first get it, they first open it up. What should they expect? So I definitely want to talk about the verification process here. How does it all work?
Absolutely, because it is very different. The first experience that you'll have when you download the app is really what sets us apart in many ways, because we are creating a verified community, as you alluded to. So, and what that means is that we are doing everything we can to keep the community authentic to the people who should be there. So neurodivergent as an umbrella. And yes, many of our members are autistic, but not exclusively. But what it means is that our members will upload a picture of their identification, a driver's license, any type of professional or verifiable identification, and a selfie so that we can, verify that they are who they say they are. That's step number one. Number two is that they will reach out to a reference. And a reference can be a parent, a caregiver, an employer, a landlord, really anyone who can vouch for who they are and that Synchrony is a good fit for them, that they will be additive to our community and add a sense of belonging and community to Synchrony. And so those two things are our sort of virtual velvet ropes, as we like to call it. We're not trying necessarily to keep people out. We want the right people in. And so once you cross that velvet rope, you are in our exclusive community and you are free to be yourself. You're unmasking, you are comfortable, you're communicating how you are comfortable communicating. You're able to select, your interests that you would like to connect with someone on. So whether that be sports or arts or cooking or crafting, video games, whatever it is. You will put in up to 10 interests, and we will match you with other members of the Synchrony community based on those shared interests.
I love
So
that.
there are a couple of different initial steps that you go through that really are hallmarks for the Synchrony community.
I love that.
And then we can
Yeah.
get into more what it looks like once you're fully integrated into it.
Yeah.
But those really are the onboarding
Yeah. Why?
steps.
Why? And I know this answer probably goes without saying, but why was that such an important aspect when creating the app? What was the thing that said, okay, this is why we're going to do this?
Because the current social platforms fail for this community, and they fail because they're open to everybody. And that is very specifically what the problem is, right? I mean, to be on an open platform, we were talking to a couple of members, for instance, that use Discord, right? And Discord is a completely open public forum. Anyone can join, and you don't really have this sense of, I feel safe, and these are my people, this is my community, because it's unverified. And so it really was important to us that we were able to take those steps. And it does provide a hurdle for our members to jump over in order to become a member of Synchrony. We do understand that, and we're aware that we're asking them to upload an ID. We're asking them to get a verification from a referral. But once you're in there and once you go through those steps, you are in a very safe, authentic space.
That's the key word.
No, I mean, I was just going to say, Becky, you do such an amazing job of like giving color and explanation. And I'm always just, like an analogy kind of one phrase kind of gal. But as simple as it sounds, how can you expect people to make a friend in an environment where you can't trust? That doesn't make sense to me. Becky articulated it obviously a million times better, but just breaking it down to the feeling when you think about, what kind of environment do you want to create? When you're a parent and you have a little kid, you're like, I'm curating their play dates, right? I want to make sure this kid doesn't bite and this one's not, going to steal toys. Well, in an environment online, when you don't have any of those controls, how do you expect somebody to feel comfortable to reach out and send a message? So we're just trying to make it easier.
Yeah. The thing that stands out to me whenever somebody does cross that velvet rope is you can drop the mask. Because I feel like a lot of people in the neurodivergent community, we mask because we feel as though we have to in order to survive. And one of the things that gets discussed a lot in autism research especially is that concept of masking. And so Brittany, for anyone I want to point this towards you. I want to talk about masking a little bit because, and for anybody that's listening right now that doesn't understand or has never heard that term, masking is essentially the effort that many neurodivergent people put into performing neurotypicality. We're often suppressing ourselves in order to fit in socially. And I've been reading a lot of research on this and a lot of studies, particularly from autism in adulthood. And one of the studies that I read points towards chronic masking as a significant contributor to anxiety and depression, especially among autistic adults. Brittany, this is for you. How does Synchrony actively work against that pressure to mask?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the interesting things but not really surprising that has come up in the research is how when neurodivergent people are communicating and socializing with other neurodivergent people, they perform socially significantly better. And I believe the connection is that there's less anxiety because you don't have the pressures to mask to conform to all of those neurotypical standards. And so as a neurotypical person trying to empathize with the community, I always think of like, imagine having to go to a party where you don't know anyone and you have to be on. For 3 hours, you have to go full social mode. Maybe it's networking, maybe it's whatever. Full social mode, turn it on, go and connect with people and socialize, and you leave that party. A lot of people can leave that instance, or maybe it's just me, feeling really, really drained because I was so on for such a chunked period of time. And imagine if that was your feeling all day, every day, the second that you walk out the door until you get back home in the evening. It's just so draining. And when your body goes through, it's almost like a cortisol spike and your body goes through, is in that fight or flight because you are just trying so hard to fit in, to meet these standards, that it does actually impact you physiologically quite a lot. And so when your body's impacted like that, more anxiety shows up and it's this horrible cycle. So to answer your original question, how is Synchrony working to support this? It's the fact, I mean, aside from the actual supports that are included in the app, you almost don't need that support in the same way as you would if it was a neurotypical app, because from the get-go, it's neurodivergent to neurodivergent socialization. So the pressure is already way, way down. There is not the same social expectations as there is on other social apps or out there in the world. It is curated specifically for the ND community. Thinking about neurodiversion that we were just at in March, I thought that was one of the most special events I have ever attended.
It was great.
Because that feeling of belonging and community and acceptance just permeated those walls. It was incredible. I haven't seen a physical event pull it off so well like that was done.
Yeah.
And that is what we're trying to curate for Synchrony.
Yeah,
we don't have
I'm
likes
so happy
and
I went.
swipes.
Yeah.
Right? We're not judging based on, likes and swipes. Come as you are. Connect.
Yes, I'm so happy that I got to go. I was a last minute addition. Like I was, they asked me to come speak about 2 weeks before that event, and because I wasn't originally going to go, and somebody had dropped out. One of their speakers dropped out, and so they reached out. Like, can you please come? I was like, yeah, sure, I'll come. And I'm glad I did, because you're absolutely right. I mean, it was one of the most fascinating, fun, accepting experiences that I've ever experienced. And I've gone to conferences for the last 20 years. It was so much fun. I want to talk AI for a second, because that's a I know this is a hot topic just in general. Jamie, your son's name is Jesse. Yes. There is an AI coach inside the app also named Jesse. That is not a coincidence. Can you talk a little bit about the reason that you made that decision and what exactly the AI social coach does?
Sure. So, it's really great intentions to have an app and connect people with one another. But you need more than that. When people that are neurodivergent connect, they oftentimes have social anxiety. There's different styles of communications. There's oftentimes many, many struggles and obstacles that people face. There's the person who fires off a million questions, the interviewer, which is my son, somebody who answers with one-word answers. And a lot of times these conversations look like two people playing tennis on opposite side, on opposite courts on the same side. They're not hitting it back and forth with one another. So we didn't just want to create a community where people were meeting each other. We wanted to have in-app tools to help deepen connections. And the best way to do that is to offer social coaching. I provide that for my son. I shared a funny text with Becky and Britt earlier today where my son was texting me, and I'm constantly social coaching him. Don't ask that now, or maybe wait, or think about the month, or, is this person the right age? It's exhausting, but comical. But those are the kinds of supports and help that we really thought would be helpful in the app, optionally, as needed. So we wanted to have an on-demand social coach. On-demand meaning you have help if and when you want it. You click a button, looks like a little icon and a little guy that looks like a Jesse, not my Jesse. And Jesse can be accessed to really help with things like what to say next, decoding social cues, setting boundaries, all things that I've done for my son as a mom on a regular basis. And it's really there to encourage independence, to directly address social anxiety that often creeps up with what to say next, and really just to offer support. Because how do you deepen connections if you're somebody who doesn't really know what to say next and cleanse up and gets nervous?
Sure. I know a lot of people get nervous surrounding the conversation of AI. I see it in the comment sections.
Yeah.
And often, like, even, I've worked and I've talked to people that have apps that have AI features in it. And sometimes people in my comments will be like, as soon as they see AI, they just check out. They're done. Yeah. They're like, no, I'm not doing that. The concern is from them, because I asked them, I'm like, what is the concern? What is the main concern here? And a lot of them say the main concern is they question, is this replacing human connection? Is this teaching neurodivergent adults to communicate in a more neurotypical way, which would be the complete opposite of what the app is all about? For any of the people that are concerned about AI in general that are listening right now, what would you say to them?
I mean, I think you just heard, without me knowing that you were going to say that you heard my explanation of the why we put it in. I think that pretty much sums up the fact that it's the opposite. We're using it there to actually deepen connection. Without those tools and without those guidance, what my concern would be is that you have a bunch of people just saying, hi, hey, how are you? And not really being able to really get to the root of it.
Sure.
And also, if there are people that don't want the support, they don't need to reach out. The AI support is really there behind the scenes. And if somebody's uncomfortable and they don't feel that they want that support, that's great. They don't need it. But we do have many, many members that are really grateful for having that. And I think an important thing also to note is that Jessie is only there to respond to contextual conversations between members. So we don't want a member becoming friends with Jessie. That Jessie wasn't designed that way. Jessie is designed as a social coach. So Jessie will respond to contextual conversations between two members. I hope that more clarifies the context and the how and the why and the opposite of what we're intending.
Yes.
And then just, if I could add to that too, I mean, one of the big motivations for us is to create independent relationships and friendships and to build these skills so that this independent confidence can be brought off app to in-person relationships and interactions. And one of the ways that we're hoping to do that is for Jessie to step in when and if needed in order to maintain that independence, right? So you don't have your best friend or your sister or your mother or whomever with you on the app. And that's because we don't want it that way, right? These are adults using an app as independent people looking for friendship and connection. And so if Jessie can help create that confidence where those independent relationships can flourish, that's really what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And Becky, one of the things that I really appreciate about Synchrony's approach, and correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't require a diagnosis to join by any means. And I know for a lot of people in the audience who have ADHD and anxiety and OCD and these other neurodivergent experiences, for a lot of them, the diagnosis came late or may not have come at all. Becky, in your experience in building this community, how many people are walking around right now that you get to talk to who know something is different about how their brain works, but have just never had access to some sort of formal evaluation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, well, at least within our community, we definitely have received some comments and feedback from members right now who are into their 40s and 50s, who are newly self-diagnosed or have just, realized, wait a minute, I think I do fall into this category. And I've been struggling with personal relationships and all types of relationships my whole life. And now this makes sense. Now I understand why. And, maybe in the past it's because there were not as many options and resources available. And now I think it's a wonderful thing. There are more and more, not enough, but more and more available. And Synchrony is one of those that say, okay, you know this about yourself now. You're comfortable reaching out to other resources. Let us be one of them. And let us help you navigate this sort of newfound understanding of your communication styles and preferences.
Yeah. And on the opposite end, and Brittany, I'll throw this to you, there's a lot of parents and partners and support providers that listen and watch my content. And I know a lot of them in the audience, they show up in the comments all the time. Sometimes they just want to help and they want to be able to offer resources like Synchrony to the people in their lives. How can they start that conversation about Synchrony? And maybe it's for like their child or for a friend or their partner or whatever it may be. How can they start that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage anybody. I mean, we have so much information out there and that's for a reason. And part of that is we want not only for people to learn about what our product is and what we're offering, but we also have been working really hard to build the trust of the community. That's very important to the three of us as just regular people, not a big tech company, that we want people to feel like this is actually a resource that I could confidently share, that they're going to be as safe as they could be in an online environment in this platform, or they could really get something out of this and it's not trying to take advantage of them or all of those things. So we've been working really hard with all of the content that's out there, with our blog posts, with our social posts, our website, to not to sell that message, but to genuinely share our beliefs around this entire topic and this product. So I would encourage people to check out our socials because it's just a more casual, gentle way to get a feel for us as a company. The website's where all of the legit information is, and you can hear our backstories and more about Synchrony as a product and all of those things. But I feel like the trust is the biggest thing for our community, and rightfully so. And so I would encourage anybody to check us out on socials and share it with whomever we're thinking of or they're thinking of. We are 18 plus, just as an additive there. So that, like Jamie had said, there's plenty of resources out there for kids, and the drop off is happening for adults. And so we're hoping to serve that gap. But yeah, we're just hoping to build the trust. And yeah.
And I think, Kai, you know, when you say like, how do you bring it up? It's always awkward, right? It's hard to say to somebody, you know, hey, do you want to go on this social app? Do you not have friends? But I think just asking questions, have you heard about this? There's this really cool new app that's looking to, grow community and foster connections. Is that something that sounds like you'd be interested in it? Are you looking to meet new friends? Did you just move? Did you change jobs? I think questions always kind of provide you with the roadmap to introduce something that you think might be helpful. But what I would say don't do is say, you have no friends and you should join Synchrony. That would be a hard no.
I think that might not work. I don't think that's a good sales pitch. And just to clarify for everybody listening, because I always want to make sure that people understand this part, not just for this app, but for any app or resource. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right here. This is not a replacement for therapy. It's not a replacement for structured support. It's something that sits alongside of it. Right. But it's not a replacement for any of that. So I want to make sure that that's clear.
It is not therapy at all. Yes. We are not therapists, although I am a licensed social worker and Brad has a master's in autism. The app, we are not HIPAA compliant. We are not therapeutic at all. Our intent is really community building and social to be additive and to complement existing supports. So you are correct.
Yes. Okay. All right. I did my research right. Perfect. Yay. I want to play a little game with all of you. It is called This or That. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you two choices. You can choose one or the other or both or neither. Don't overthink it. It's not deep, I promise you. So I'll give you a choice and you just let me know. Oh, I'll go down the line. I'll go down the line. Yeah. First one. Are you ready? Here we go. Dinner party with 10 people you sort of know, or a movie night with 2 people you absolutely trust.
Movie night.
Movie night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say movie night.
Movie night. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you there. Okay. All right. That's fine. And just so you know, anybody that said the first one, you're not wrong. There's no wrong answers here. You can go ahead.
Wow,
I'd like to think I was the other. I'd like to think I was, and I will push myself there sometimes, but I prefer the other.
I would say a dinner party with 4 people that I know really well over movies, but you didn't give me that choice.
That's fair. That's fair. We can add it in. Well, we added it in. There we go. We'll do it in post. Next one. The friend who texts back in 30 seconds every single time, or the friend who takes 3 days but writes something that actually means you feel completely seen.
I'm going to give a very unpopular answer, but I like immediate reply.
Oh, you're going to hate me.
No, I'm very used to it. I have teenagers, but I and a husband who I might get, every 10 a reply. But I like immediate. It's not the right answer, though.
I'm one of the fast repliers, but all of my closest people seem to have the trend of being bad texters.
I'm not a great texter. So I fall into the second category. I also, though, teach my kids and everything. It's sort of, there are different types of friends for different parts of your life. Yeah. And so I think you need both. But my closest friends, it's the deeper replies.
Yeah. I'm not intentionally a bad texter. I just sometimes I'll reply up here. Yeah. And I'll think that I replied in real life and I didn't. And I'll be like, why haven't they written me back? Come to find out, I never even
Totally.
So,
and it also just happens to be all of my closest friends happen to have really intense ADHD. So there's a theme there as well.
Yes, and you understand it. You
Yeah,
understand what it's
I
like.
do as well, but I am an immediate.
Yeah.
That's why I have to text immediately because if
You
I
are
That's fair.
immediate.
You are immediate.
That's
Yes.
fair.
You're on
it'll
top of
fall
it.
out of my brain.
Next one. You are the one who sends the first message in a brand new conversation, or you wait to see if they reach out first.
First, always.
First.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say in adulthood first now.
Yeah.
It took me a
I
while.
wasn't always, yeah, I'm with you. I wasn't always like that. I'd be like, if they wanted to talk, they'll reach out. But like now,
Right.
but then like 20 years will go by. And I'm like, I should probably reach out to this person. I don't think they're going to text me. Next one. Forced small talk with a stranger in an elevator, or just silently staring at the floor buttons like a completely normal person.
I'm going to silently stare. I hate small talk.
It's awful.
Yeah, I stare.
I'll even pretend to be on my phone. I'll do anything. I'm thinking about putting a Post-it sign on my head that says, I'm not interested in having a small talk conversation.
I only do small talk when I am once again with my kids because I try to be a better example.
That's fair.
Aw.
That's fair.
That's good.
I don't like small talk, but I'll often do it just because I also hate silence.
See,
so
I
I'm uncomfortable
love
in
it.
all scenarios.
I think it's so important for friends and partners to be able to sit in silence
I
without it
do.
feeling awkward. And I
Well,
love it.
I mean, these two are New Yorkers. I'm Australian, so I do wonder if there's something there.
I'm so used to silence. I have a son with autism, people.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not far used to it.
That's fair. Yeah, no, I've gotten to the age now that I don't care as much. And so like if somebody's small talking me, I'll just be like, I gotta go. Or I'll just say what
hate
I'm feeling. Like,
small
oh,
talk.
hey, listen, it was really nice to talk with you. I gotta get going.
Yeah.
Like I'll just say it now because I don't want to
My
waste my time.
husband's the king of small talk, and he always makes fun of me because he
Oh,
knows
God.
everybody's name, every neighbor, every person, everything,
no.
and I know at people's pets' names.
Yeah.
That's as far. In the dog park, I do small talk. In the dog park, I want to know what time you walk your dog, what do you feed your dog. Outside of the dog park, I know nothing.
That's fair. That's fair. Two more. Forced small talk with a wait.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we just know.
Yeah.
One more. Here we go. 3 ride or die friends for the rest of your life, or a constantly rotating crew of interesting people you keep meeting.
3.
Three.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good one.
of course.
I will say I used to bartend, and I do miss bartending because of the various people that you would just meet.
Yeah.
You know, you would just kind of like randomly meet and just hear so many different stories and experiences. I do miss that. But if I had to choose between the two, I'm going to go with my ride or dies because they're
I
with
can
me to
see
the
you
end.
being really good behind the bar, just
Oh, that was great.
chit-chatting with people.
Oh, it was
With that
great.
smile? Yeah, big
Yeah.
tip.
No, like
This
you
whole
don't get
thing-
frustrated. Can you guys
this whole
imagine me as
thing-
a bartender? Oh my God, that would be a train
I
wreck.
was a really good bartender. I bartended for like 10 years. It was, I do miss that. I don't miss the side work.
Yeah.
I don't miss that, but I
like
do
to
miss the
think
people.
I would like that, but Kai, I would be a disaster. It would, oh my
I
God.
would be a disaster now that I'm older because I
Yeah.
bartended when I was younger. I was like right out
I
of
would have been a
college.
disaster no matter what. Not an age
That's
thing.
fair.
It's a Jamie thing.
That's fair. Listen, I really appreciate all of you, being here to talk about this app, and I know that there's going to be people that are going to get something good out of this app. It's one of the reasons why I'm such a major advocate for it, because I feel it's essential for the neurodivergent community. And I just want to take a moment to thank the three of you for what you're doing to create a safe space for the neurodivergent community to just be ourselves. Because I'm a late diagnosed person, and I realized that I went my entire life masking. And I didn't even realize I was masking. And I was beating myself up over things that, come to find out, were things happening up here that I had no idea. And I know for me, I never had a safe space to unmask. I never had that. Not at home, not in sports, especially. Like, it was always masking.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, yes, but it made me who I am today. So I'm kind of thankful for it, because I'm glad I got to experience it, because now I have an appreciation even more for what you're all doing here, because you're creating a safe space. And I'm pretty sure all three of you have stories that are similar to that, where you can say, hey, I didn't have this, and this is what, this is something that's being offered. And even if one person gets something out of this episode today, like it's worth it. It's 100% worth it. So one of the I have two more questions for all of you. The second to last one being, and all three of you can answer here. Why should people download Synchrony right now as soon as this podcast is over?
Who wants to go?
You lead the charge, Jamie.
I mean, why not? You
Yeah.
know, why wouldn't you want to explore and see what it is? The best thing that can come out of it is finding your people and having community and having friends, which I think is a pretty awesome thing. And the worst thing is that you decide it's not for you. But I think that would be unlikely. And I think that the why not question is kind of everything. Why not? Especially, we should say right now that we're still in our launch phase. There are no fees associated with trying it. And so in life, anything is worth exploring. Dip your toe in. Take a look, see what it's like, and hopefully you enjoy.
And collective effort too. The more people that are on Synchrony, the better experience it is for everyone, because you can find so many different people that could be a match for you, or that could be your people, quote unquote. So the more people on there, the better.
Yeah, and I would just say, I think for all of us making new friends and meeting new people, it's you put yourself out there, you're vulnerable. It's kind of a leap of faith, and we're sort of lowering the bar there. Make this a less scary way to do that. And so, I would just encourage people to sort of take this opportunity to dip your foot into a much safer environment to do that in.
Yeah, I love that. My last question for all of you, whether people download the app or not, what's one thing that you want the audience to take away from our conversation today? Coming with the hard hitting questions.
They should tell everyone about your podcast, Kai. That's what I take away. You're
I'll take that
awesome, and everyone should listen to you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
No, but seriously, I mean, I think the takeaway is that it doesn't have to be as difficult as it is. I would think we're providing a resource to try to make life a little bit easier and more enjoyable. And, so just to keep looking for those resources. And by the way, if one doesn't exist, maybe try to launch it yourself, right? Fill one of those gaps that exist out there.
I mean, outside of Synchrony, I think the takeaway is, really having an opportunity to just be ourselves. We spoke a lot about Synchrony, but I feel like what we really did in this last 45 minutes or so was show you who we are and what we're trying to do. And I don't know if you're anything like I am. I'm one of those people that tends to go into partnerships and do business with people that I like and I trust. So hopefully we've kind of pulled the curtains behind, like the Wizard of Oz. We're not Oz though, right? We're actually nice, normal people that have just good intentions that are trying to fill a gap. And hopefully that came across.
Yeah. Does that make me Dorothy? Am I Dorothy? Say yes.
No,
Say
I don't know what you are.
I want to be Dorothy.
You're not Dorothy.
Oh, then you are.
Thank you.
You want to be Dorothy? I mean,
Thank you.
I would like to be the good witch. Gone to the good witch. Just
That's not the one that gets a house on her, right? No,
I don't want to be that.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
that's
cool.
your sister.
Just want to make sure. All right.
Look at what your sister.
Go ahead, Brittany.
Come out.
I mean, yeah, I just keep coming back to kind of in the same sort of track, that sense of belonging and like what we talked about with neurodivergent and that sense of belonging. And we've had comments from our current members, just the power of, even if you download the app and you don't even send a single request to anyone, just being able to scroll and see there's so many people out there who are in a similar situation to you, who have experienced the same things that you've experienced. There's a lot of power in that. And that's what was so striking to me. Yeah, and that was so striking to me at Neurodivergent, just like how happy it made people to feel different their whole life and then come together with all of those other people who felt different. That is just so powerful, and we're really proud to be creating that space online.
Amazing.
So it's accessible every day, not just at wonderful events like Neurodivergent.
Yes. And for everybody listening, I'm going to include the links to all of the social media channels, all the website, the download links. It's all going to be in the show notes of this. So all you have to do is click, go check it out, and you dip your toe. You might like it. You might meet some new friends and all of that. And I think that's really important. Brittany, Becky, Jamie. Oh, that rhymed. I don't know why. ADHD. See, it just like, I don't know why. I don't know why that just like clicked for me. Like I'm all about it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, let me tell you what I'm taking out of this entire conversation with these three amazing people. Number one, Jamie said there's no milestone associated with loneliness. You get one for riding the subway by yourself, for a play date, for a first job. There isn't one for having somebody to call on a Tuesday night. And that stopped me. If nobody measures it, nobody plans for it. Number two, Becky walked us through what they call the virtual velvet rope. You upload an ID and then somebody who actually knows you vouches for you. And she was clear. They are not trying to keep people out. They want to just have the right people in there. Jamie put it even plainer. How do you expect somebody to make a friend somewhere where they can't trust anybody? I always figured that, you make a friend first and then the trust catches up later. And they flip that on me. If you don't feel safe in the room that you're in, you never get to the park where you can actually make a genuine friend. And number three, Brittany said that some of the members that download Synchrony, they never send a single request to anybody, and they still get something out of it just from scrolling and seeing how many people are living the same life that they are living. You don't have to be ready to talk to anybody yet once you join the app. Sometimes just knowing there's a lot of you out there, that is enough on its own. If you take one thing from this episode, I want you to take what Becky said. And she said, it doesn't have to be as difficult as it is. Sit with that for a second. Sit with that. Whatever you've been white knuckling on your own, it is worth asking whether it really has to be that hard. Now, let me talk to you about the app itself, because this is the reason I wanted them on. Again, Synchrony is a social app built specifically for neurodivergent adults. It was not retrofitted from something else. It was built from the ground up for us. Here's how it works. You download it. You verify who you are with an ID and a selfie, and then somebody who knows you, whether it be a parent, an employer, a landlord, whomever, they vouch for you. And yes, that is a couple extra steps. That's the whole point. Then you pick up 10 things that you're actually into: sports, gaming, cooking, crafting, whatever it may be, and it matches you with the people who are also into those things. There's no likes, there's no swiping, there's nobody sizing you up in a photo. And if you freeze up mid-conversation, there is a coach in there called Jesse that you can tap. You tap that button, but only when you want to use it. It's not a mandatory thing. It's only there if you need it. And listen, I want to be clear. Nobody is paying me to say this. I've known these three people since before they even launched this app. They are a mom, a teacher, and a founder who found a gap and built the thing themselves. When we recorded this episode, they were still in this launch phase. So it costs you absolutely nothing to try. So I implore you, go check it out. Download Synchrony, verify your profile, and give it a real week. Just give it a shot. See what happens. Their site is joinsynchrony.com, and the download links and their socials are all in the show notes of this episode. Speaking of, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow me at The Vibe with Kai on all of your favorite social media platforms, and be sure to visit my official website at thevibewithkai.com, where you can check out my ADHD blog, my newsletter, my store, and every single episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast. Also, check out the show notes for details on how you can join the exclusive ADHD subscriber hub on Patreon for only $5 a month, where you get exclusive ADHD insights, the ADHD deep dive library, and Reverse the Mic, where my guests flip the script and they interview me. Jamie, Brittany, Becky, they did that for this episode, and it was great. And that episode, that exclusive video, that is in the Patreon waiting for you right now. So make sure you go check it out. With that said, my friends, thank you so much for watching and for listening. As always, much love, good vibes. I'll catch you next time. Bye.